I want to thank you all so much for joining us today for a powerful discussion that I believe is going to empower you, encourage you, and evolve you. I use those three words, empower, encourage, and evolve, intentionally because those are the three pillars that Resilient Immigrant was built on. This organization encourages immigrants to dream without limits, to envision a brighter future, and to take the first steps towards realizing their dreams. Of course, this organization empowers immigrants, and that's what we're really going to get into, with the tools, the knowledge, and skills they need to turn their dreams into a reality, fostering economic independence and self sufficiency. And as a promise, this organization is going to evolve alongside immigrants as they build their lives in new communities, offering unwavering support, guidance, and a sense of belonging. As an immigrant myself, I wish this organization existed when we migrated to America over 20 years ago, especially for my mother. I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Sophia Danner Okotie. I am the founder of a beautiful women's wear brand that's made in Nigeria and transmitted and transported all around the world. I have some heavy hitters here today, okay, who are really gonna help you navigate this robust job market. I want to start by introducing these lovely ladies. You'll hear from a seasoned sales professional and experts on go to market strategists, Omotunde Oguntoyibo. I hope I have not butchered that name. Thank you for joining us, Omotunde, today. Next, we have a career and workforce consultant, Edie Hayes, who is also a recognized expert in diversity and inclusion. Hey, Edie, thank you for joining us. And finally, a nationally recognized career and business strategist, Tinu Awoliyi. Thank you for joining us today. Tinu, I actually want to start by asking you this question. Can you share any strategies for standing out to employers right now in a competitive job market?
Yeah, I think that's a great question to introduce us in. Very lovely introduction, and I love what Resilient Immigrants is standing for. My parents were immigrants as well, and I wish they had something like this too, right?
Mm.
It's a great community, which I believe will have impact within the coming generations. So, competitive job market. Um, I think one of the things that you have to do right now in 2024, and I'm pretty sure Amatunde and Edie are going to agree with me, is
Mm.
that you have to have a personal brand. You need to
Mm.
be authentically you. For example, when I branded myself and I started on Clubhouse, one of the things I stood for is that I love a soft life. I like a life of luxury. I wasn't on any social media, and that wasn't the best thing. I'm very introverted, but you don't have to be loud to be on social media. You just need to have a social presence. People need to know who you are and be authentic, right? I know some people may think that this sounds cliche, but I mean, if we could speak on here for 3 hours, I would love that. But just being authentically you is the best thing ever. Yes, companies and businesses are looking to partner with people that know the work, but they also want to understand that, hey, can they fit in my culture? Because I wouldn't want to work with someone who's, can't communicate or send a text message, even, putting
True.
this together. One of the important things are effectively communicating with, which actually translates into like a hard skill or a functional skill, which is like effective corporate communication, right? Um, so for the most part, one of the reasons why I've been asked to be on this panel is because I can actually communicate. I can actually send text messages back, right? I
Hey,
love
girl.
things, right? I'm just I just want us to utilize us being ourselves to be that person that's going to provide impact to the world, to the company, or if you're going to, just be a servant to your community as a business owner.
Mm.
Just be authentically you, and have a personal brand, especially in 2024, and get on social media. Be consistent as you can. Right now, I'm taking a social media break, but if I can come through, I will come through. But you have to have that online presence. Personal branding is really important, and just be authentically you.
Thanks for sharing that. And it's so funny that you're saying this as a career professional to be authentic, because also, you get a lot of people that tell you that with content creation, like people who are brand ambassadors and influencers. It's, you want to make sure that you're your authentic self, but it's funny that you're saying that for career professionals as well. Um, Amatunde, do you agree?
Absolutely. And to kind of echo what Tanu said, I believe being confident in who you are, having a great understanding of who you are, what you want, what your purpose is, will take you very
Mm,
far. If you
that's
don't
good.
represent yourself, nobody else will. If you don't know who you are, nobody else can, right? So my three things would have been to show up confidently, to be clear and concise in your messaging, to always have that elevator pitch wrapped up nice and tightly, and that goes into being confident, knowing who you are and what you want. And like Tina said, she said personal brand, but actually, I thought of creativity, understanding that it's a
Mm,
competitive and
that's
very
good.
saturated market, and understanding who you are again with that confidence to know what distinct value proposition, as we say in sales, you bring to the market, and being able to communicate that in a clear, concise, and confident manner. For someone like me, like anybody who meets me knows that social impact and being involved in my community is what's most important to me. I have held a variety of roles across industries, but that has been the common thread that you've seen through that. And I'm able to confidently express that when I'm in interviews. But yeah, that's all that I would add to that.
Edie, what is it that you recommend as a way to
Man,
stand out in this market right now?
yeah, I was over here doing like the little small claps because I agree
We're
thousand
dropping
percent. I would
gems.
say, yeah. So I've worked in the HR talent acquisition space for the last 20 years now, of course, as a business owner and consulting. And what these two ladies have shared is spot on. What I want to call out very boldly is that all the things that they said that you should have, what has worked for them, you got to make sure that people know you. So
Mm,
in order to do all those, like your all these great things that they said, right? But who are you sharing that with? So 65% on average of roles that are out there are filled by your referrals. My last two companies that are jobs that were six figures, I didn't even know about them until a previous coworker told me about it. So, as you're being authentic, as you are really understanding who you are, what you represent, what your values are, how they align, are you going to be, do you feel good when you're working for an employer, what they stand for? All of those
mm,
things, being soft life, authentic, taking a social media break, shout out to you, because that's right in line with your brand, right? Of that
yeah,
soft life. But
soft life. Mm,
being able to do those things, but people know you all those things about you. So if you're not
mm,
on LinkedIn, if you are not an active person that's active on LinkedIn or social networks or whatever that may be to create your community, your brand, it's almost like you're in a room by yourself. And you're this great person with all these things that they've stated, but you're in a room by yourself. So I would
mm.
absolutely double down on everything that they said and add to that. Make sure people know you. Otherwise, it's not going to be as it's harder for you to promote those things that of who you are and what you stand for.
And that really pushes me to the next point, which is networking. Edie, I want you to really give some strategy for networking, because it is important for people to know you. There's some opportunities that aren't just publicized out there, like in a job board, but are only available for those who know someone else. What are your
Yeah,
tips on successfully networking in this season?
yeah. So, in my consulting space, where I partner with organizations, awesome organizations, companies, Fortune 500. Specifically for my consulting 101 is Black women in any variation specifically. But what I found is that as myself as a job seeker, sometimes it's just like, listen, I feel a little bit overwhelmed.
Hmm.
I know my people, I know my work bestie, and for right now, that's good, right? Or maybe I'm not even looking for a new role, so I'm okay. And that's the biggest mistake, right? Is waiting to be
Mm.
active on LinkedIn, waiting to nurture your relationships until you need something. It doesn't work that way. Just like having a mentor, mentee, or sponsor, right? And that's a big tip I would give. To your point, Sophia, is start giving. What are those things that you're great at?
Ooh.
Social, whatever it is. Can you, is there someone that you're like, yo, you don't know how to do pivot tables? I do. Hey, you want a 10-minute chat? Do it right where you're at with the people that you know. Algorithm. So if you're on social media, you know that, there's certain people that show up in your feed all the time. There's some people that you forgot
Mm.
that they were there. It's all technology and algorithm. So for my clients that say, okay, build me up a LinkedIn and then I'm going to go for it. And I'm like, you only got 5 people in your room, right? Or you're not saying anything, you're not posting anything. Well, it's hard for
Mm.
them to see you. So from a virtual standpoint, and this can go both ways in, at work, I don't care what you do, by the way. You could be first line retail, you could be a VP. It's the same challenges. Is be okay with having new friends. Be okay with giving. People see you give and they are so appreciative. What are you good at? What is your zone of genius? What can you do with your eyes closed? Start there, have those conversations, and then have a cadence. And it will just open up your world so much to where it should become a point where most of the time it's not uncomfortable. And then, of course, like you said, Sophia, look around, do Google search, get on Eventbrite, follow the right people and not just your friends and the funny people to figure out where are people like me that share some of my same loves. It doesn't even have to be like, oh, they're in HR, so I'm going to go to only HR stuff. No, go to stuff like, hey, I love to garden group. Those things. Talk to your neighbors.
Okay.
Those things are
Hey.
so important. So do it uncomfortable until it gets comfortable.
That's so good because what you're saying is that you can network online. And I think that
Oh,
traditionally people feel like you can only network in person. And that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. So to be able to offer solutions like those are great. Mrs. Soft Life here, Tinu, I want you to also give some strategies that people can network better.
So I'll just start with my own personal story. I started networking very uncomfortably, and I even still say that I have a very love-hate relationship with networking because naturally I am introverted. Vivian knows this. Also, I want to say shout out to Agile Bay. She's very close to Vivian as well. But
Mimi, yeah,
networking
yeah.
is definitely something that is not easy for introverts. So I'm going to actually speak to the introverts that are here, especially when you're coming from one country to a new country. Everyone wants to gravitate towards someone that they're comfortable with, right? But we have to do this uncomfortably, just as Edie has said. For us to get to that next level, we can't stay stuck in a comfortable position. We have to change. So
Mm.
for me, I started networking from Clubhouse. That's when, things really took off. I built a community, built Black Girls Normalizing Luxury. I got brand deals and stuff like that. I spoke on
Wow.
Indeed 2 times. I met like my co-founder, Cassie. She's the founder of My Professional Agenda. And we literally, all we do is talk every single day. Like there's not a day that we don't speak. I met so many people just from networking. And there are actually very, very weird ways to networking. In 2024, yes, you should be networking online, but you can actually go into the store. Sometimes when I take walks by where I live, I can't say where I live, obviously we're online, but one of the things I see is that those government buildings that I'm walking past while I'm getting my steps in, they're saying, hey, come to this, I don't know why this word is job fair. They're having a job fair. And these are top companies like Amazon, like Meta, Microsoft. So literally you can network while you're working out, right? That's what I
Mm.
do. I see that there's an event coming up, I'm going to do that. And I'm also the type of person that I can turn it off and I can turn it on. I know that I can network from,
Good.
like, have a schedule. If it works better for you, have a schedule where you can network. Even if I'm going to networking events and I don't want to talk too much about networking or what I did, because yes, I love the soft life. If I'm going to a new event to meet people, I'm not talking about work because I finished it. And I'm the type
Okay.
of person that wakes up at 4 a.m. I'm not speaking about work after 2 p.m. on a Friday.
Hmm.
So there's so many different ways to network. You can do cold calls. Those things still work. If you're in a coffee shop, you can actually see that there's an event coming up and you can go to these events. And it takes small steps to actually reach that big goal. But in terms of networking, find that balance, and you kind of have to do it uncomfortably, and then it will start getting comfortable for you. And it's not going to be an issue after you break that, like, okay, I think I'm good on this. I think this is something that I can do very, very easily now.
Can
Yes,
I
you
add
touched.
something to that?
Yes,
I'm
please
sorry,
go
Sophia.
ahead. Go ahead.
I have a end time testimony. So
Oh,
Tinu mentioned Cassie and Ajabe. What's her name? This social media will have you calling people by their social media.
Mimi.
But the crazy thing is that I've never met either of them. But I was just talking to Al Jabe in my DMs, and I've been following her since forever. And my sister knows her, who was a business owner. And then Cassie and I have exchanged phone numbers, but of course have never met because we're in different states. So I just want to call this out that I am meeting these beautiful ladies for, the first time besides, preparing for this. But that is kind of crazy, right? We never know what our first, second, third connections are.
Never
So I'm
know.
excited that, and let me say this from a HR hiring manager perspective. If Tina was like, hey, I have somebody that I want to refer, and she said Cassie, and I know Cassie, for example, or Cassie said Tinu, and I didn't know Tinu, I'm going off of their reputation and my rapport with them, and I'm going to automatically assume that Tinu is good people. So that little piece right there could be your way into a lot of places just by networking. So anyway, I got excited.
I think you all are dropping gems. I want to allow Omotunde to chime in on this topic. What strategies do you have for networking?
Absolutely. I like to think that networking is one of my superpowers. I'm naturally a very social person, so the exact opposite of luxury bay. But I wanted to echo some of Edie's sentiments. I think it's really, really important when it comes to networking to be preventative as opposed to, when you need something, going out there and looking for something. Your network is your social capital. It is what's going to get you ahead and what's going to get you to that next level. It's not a job online. It's not a job board. And so it's really important to put a lot of intention into it. Personally, I like in-person connections. I think they foster just a stronger bond in some ways. And the way that I do it, I actually got on a nonprofit board just by networking.
Wow.
The way that I see it is to align it with your interests. And that comes back again to knowing who you are, what you want to do, and then just inserting yourself into those spaces. I've been laid off a couple of times, and both times it was just like, okay, what am I going to do with my time? And it's, what am I interested in? I actually have time for the first time in my life. Let me do the things that align with my values. In 2020, I started hiking. I got a dog, started going to this national park, fell in love with it. Decided, and at the same time, I started seeing posts on LinkedIn, the power of social media, about Black women on boards. My mom was on a board when I was growing up, didn't really understand, what that meant or what significance it had. But when I started seeing images of Black women on boards, seeing that the culture had an appetite for it, I thought, my God, this park means so much to me. It's changed my life. I'm a healthier person now. And I reached out to a nonprofit organization that supported the park. I said, hey, this park made a big impact in my life. I lost all this weight. I got a new lifestyle. I'd love to give back my time in any way that I can. And also, one of my goals is to eventually join a board, and hopefully that could be in the works for me. They said, okay, sure, all right, come on a hike with us. We went on a hike. We just got to know each other. I started to volunteer with them. I would go to events. I'm a sales professional, so I table with them, collect emails, help them build a book of business. I did that for about a year and a half, not really expecting much in return. I'd already said my intentions, said my values, said my purpose. Didn't really need to reiterate it. And then I followed through. That's another thing where you're networking. If you say
Hmm,
something, you have to follow through.
that's
You
good.
have to have the tenacity to follow up, whether it's I'm going to send you a follow-up email, I'm going to introduce you to this person, show up. The little things matter. But I showed up every time. I was very enthusiastically interested in it. And at the beginning of this year, a board position opened and I was offered it. I couldn't
Wow.
believe it. I felt like I'd manifested this.
Wow.
It was like I
Amazing.
envisioned an outcome and went for it. But that's
Hmm.
the thing with networking. Know who you are, know what you want, envision the outcome that you want, and then just go for it and follow through.
Oh, this just tickles me because with all of you ladies, what I'm feeling now is you all using your feminine energy to really enter into these new spaces. And it's so funny. I know feminine energy is like the hot button issue right now on online, but it's really true that you aligned with your heart and your soul's desires. And I think that it's COVID-19 was a very powerful in leading us into what we truly desire to do. Today, I really want to follow up with this question, especially for those who are watching and are like, well, I don't have employment right now. I was just laid off or I just left my job. How did you overcome the feelings of maybe feeling like, am I ever going to get a job? What's next? All of those bombarding thoughts that come in when you have no work. How did you overcome that?
Absolutely. I've unfortunately been laid off twice now. I will
Mm,
say the first time was a lot more difficult than the second time. The first time was like, okay, you got through it. And the second time was like, you've done this before. Everything is going to be fine. But it is
okay.
not easy. I was somebody who defined a lot of who I am with my work because I was so purpose driven in
Mm,
it. And our
mm.
culture our culture perpetuates that.
Yeah,
And
especially
I
African culture. Yeah.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So much of who I was tied to my work, and getting laid off was a big wake up call that I needed to kind of separate the two. I like my work did not define me. It's not easy. It's a lot of, I'm in therapy, so I had a coach to guide me
Mm,
through it. But I had to kind of go through that. And then again, focusing on what I wanted, right? I actually got my focusing on what you want and then not taking your eye off the ball. It's really, really easy when you're laid off to get caught up in this is so hard. I can't find anything. I'm putting in all these applications. And it's okay to feel sorry for yourself, but you do not keep pushing that rock up the hill. You have to keep going because if you can give yourself breaks, you can give yourself moments to breathe, but you still have to get out there, go out in the community,
hmm.
go network, keep putting in those LinkedIn, put in the effort to live the life you want, knowing, oh my God, this is hard. That's where the resilience comes in, right? Being immigrants, we're taught that, we're always kind of trying to stabilize our immediate future. So we have those skills, and you just kind of bring that again into your search. It takes a tenacity, it takes that confidence again, and it's hard. None of this is easy. I feel like resilience is seen as this, it's a really, really strong virtue to have. But what people don't really talk about is how really extremely hard and emotional it is to go through it. But
Mm,
giving yourself that grace, but not keeping your eye off the ball. You talked about bringing that feminine energy. I'm not afraid to be emotional. I'm not afraid to be like,
good.
this sucks, this is hard. But I also give myself the space to be like, okay, this is our goal. This is what we want. We have to trust ourselves. There's that trust and hope and knowing, holding on to that hope, just knowing that goes a long way, and that'll take you to the next step. Um, I got laid off again in December. I
Mm,
haven't worked since. I was
wow.
lucky because, as when you talk about working towards your purpose and your goals last year, not knowing what was coming with me, I decided to apply to spend the year working towards applying for an MBA. I just I'd never really had big goals before. Through my career, finally decided I think this is a path for me, and got laid off in December, got accepted into school. I turned in my applications January 4th, got
Woo!
accepted into
Things just
school.
worked for you, girl.
And now it's just like, oh wow, okay, I have all this time on my hands. I'll never have time like this again to explore my interests. I am still networking every day. My schedule is full. I am out. I am volunteering. I am going to National Black MBA. I'm going to National Sales Network. Tina talked about seeing those job fairs, and I'm getting out in the community. I'm letting everyone know what my goals are, what my plans are. I'm not really expecting anything but giving myself, right? And giving, just showing people like what I'm about, that I can follow through. And I trust that at the end of my 2 years, I'll be in a solid place. But it's not easy. I'm broke. Summer's about to come. I'm trying to have a hot girl summer, a soft life summer. But I just kind of have to trust, like, it's hard right now, but good things are on the horizon. And we just have to keep rolling that rock up the hill.
I want to follow up with you, Edie, on this because you're a career consultant. So you're dealing, I'm sure, with people who have been laid off, who are looking for, maybe their next moves. Are
Yeah.
there any tips that you give them? And I actually see someone in the comments that says these layoffs are getting ridiculous. And we're
And
hearing about some of the biggest companies laying off people. What tips would you give those who've been laid off right now?
yeah, for sure. And I can speak from experience. I don't know, yay me. But I was laid off in August of last year from a top tech firm.
Wow.
And my gosh, you wrap that up perfectly as far as what it feels like. I think a lot of us, or I realize this in myself and my clients, we don't take time to mourn. Like it's a loss. Like we are like, oh, okay, bills are coming. What do I need to do? What resources, whatever, should I just grab something? Should I take out my 401k? I've heard a little bit of everything. And like Tunde said, I was in that space where I was like, okay, I need some grit. Okay, what survival mode? Okay, what am I supposed to do? This feels different. Like my identity is different. Whether you did not love your job or did love your job, it's still a loss. And so giving ourselves time, and that time might be an hour a day, it might be a full day, whatever it is to make sure that you're pouring into yourself is something I'm still practicing. I'm not employed right now. But it was also something, to your point, of me manifesting of like, God, I really want to be a full-time entrepreneur. I love what I do. I love consulting. I love all these things. And I did love my 9 to 5. I'll be very honest. And my manager was like the best. I know, right? Rare.
Wow.
But she
That's
was
very
amazing,
rare.
right? Right. That's what I said. Let me be clear. That's rare.
Yeah.
But I was almost like, again, did I manifest this? I don't want to lose this opportunity, but I also got to eat. I got a family. I got a child. It's summertime. I want to be a hot mama too. But what I try to tell my clients, and honestly, I got to keep telling myself this, is what does great look like to you? Like your definition of success can change. Like early in my career, it looked different. I was traveling every week when I was a recruiter, all these different things. But how do you define success? Do you need to speak to someone that is in your network or not in your network to say, hey, I just need to bounce some stuff off of you. I got some wins to talk about, or I got some challenges to talk about. And I do that oftentimes. A lot of times it's the clarity part, whether they're laid off or not. But if you're laid off, you really have to figure out, what does a good day, good week, good month look like? And be very specific. And then figure out that game plan. That's where you may need help, a therapist, a coach, a mentor, whatever that is. So really try to figure out, it's okay to tweak it, but what is my plan for the next month, 2 months? And take little bites of it to try to figure out, how can I not minimize being overwhelmed, but then be productive? And then how do I define productivity? So I give my clients schedules too. This is what I want you to do when you're laid off. You can take these out so that you can wake up at 4 a.m. or whatever time you normally wake up. So you can have a cadence and feel good and feel productive. So you keep your mind busy so that you don't have to sulk too much. Do you need to minimize your social time or social media time? Do you need to do QuickBooks? Like, let's be resourceful so that we can kind of clean up our space to figure out how we're going to be strategic. But for those of you that are laid off, maybe laid off, it's just one of those things that we got to figure out and really look into internally to say, yo, this is a job, it's not my life.
Mm.
And fight that and try to figure it out, but be resourceful as much as possible. And then the last thing I will say on this topic is there are a lot, of course, the media is going to tell us what they want to do, but we're also in the world and we've experienced it. We know people that are laid off. Very, very true, and it's not going to stop. I mean, from the trends and research that I do, it's going to keep going where the companies just feel like they can do it because it's a trend and nobody's going to be like, oh my God, right? They're going to be like, oh, well, other companies are doing it, or whatever the case is. But I want you to know there's still a lot of jobs out there. And it's harder in the market because if there's less jobs or, you know, more people in the market, that means your game, your networking game, your community has to be bigger. There's such a high number of jobs that are not even publicly posted. And a lot of times we get declined for
Right,
jobs
gotta
that has nothing
network.
to do with us. Absolutely.
Mm.
We can have an MBA, a PhD, astronaut. I'm being extreme silly. And we're like, damn, why do we keep getting declined for jobs? I know I can do it. I've done it, whatever. It could be because I hired Tina. I didn't even look at the job applications. I hired her because I know her or no other.
Mm.
So just, you know, being able to have the right lean strategy is going to get you way further faster, especially when you're laid off.
That's good. That is really good. What you mentioned was basically you're going to evolve as you get older. You are going to evolve. Things are going to change, and sometimes people feel like a layoff is a rejection when it could just be a redirection. So thanks for touching on that. Tinu, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I just honestly, I feel like the introvertedness is just leaving the room at this point. The spirit of introvertedness is going, it's left. But I just love what everyone is saying right now. For me, I've never been laid off. And I mean, I see layoff as just something that's just like maybe a rejection. I've quit jobs before, for sure, because I can't kill myself. I just can't. But
No.
I always believe that there is a solution to everything. And I have more of a type A personality. So I do believe that we don't need to dwell on the fact that, you know, there's a situation here, there's a solution to that situation. And that's why it's also important to network. And it's also important to have information available to you and have and go to, you know, programs like, you know, Resilient Immigrant that give you these resources and
Yeah.
information. So if I were to be laid off, I'd be like, you know what, great. I'd look at the good, the positivity inside of all of this, right?
Mm.
And Cynthia Bliss said, keeping it positive is definitely a great way to keep going.
Right.
And positivity keeps me going. Having faith in God, for me at least, keeps me going.
Yes.
So the way I look at this is that, well, there's resources. If you do find yourself, you know, laid off, you can literally, there's going to be money. There's money out there that they're going to still pay you, right? You can look for a job, but you don't have to panic looking for a job, right? You don't have to apply 100 places, right? When I did not take my break in, today we're going to connect because I'm doing my executive MBA. But at that point, what I would tell my client is that you have an ATS scannable resume. And Edie, you can talk to this as well. You have the action verbs in your resume. Your resume is going to bypass that ATS, right? And these are practical tips. So you don't need to freak out at this point. You have a solid resume that's going to get you to talking to the hiring managers. Why are you freaking out? Why are you applying to 100 jobs? If there are 4 jobs that you really want, tailor your resume to apply to those 4 jobs and take the rest of the day off. You have your money coming in, right? You have your money coming in. That's fine from the government. I think it's I forget what it's called. Unemployment. You can file for unemployment after you get laid off. And some they don't know these things, right? So just take it easy, right? Work with people, work with your county. If whatever county you live in, they have free resources. You can even get free certifications within your county if you have a spirit of redirection. If you want to pivot into something else, do something new. It is okay. There's always a solution to everything. And I feel like, especially growing up, when we saw that when our parents got laid off and whatnot, it was like a nightmare. But it doesn't have to be a nightmare when there's a solution to everything. Okay, I'm laid off. Now let me have a plan. And then one thing I want to leave everyone with is have a strategy too. You cannot just apply to 100 jobs and think, and I always hear people say it. Edie, you can probably attest to the same thing, that people are like, well, I'm not getting callbacks, because it's impossible to apply to 100 jobs in a day and think that you can tailor that resume. You cannot. And especially if you want that $160,000 job, if I see a job that's $160,000, right, and I really want that, well, I'm going to make sure I apply to that one job, even if it's that one job that I apply to every day, because I know that I want it so much. I'm going to make sure I tailor it and know that, okay, I'm actually closer to getting the call back and the job of my dreams because I actually tailored my resume, and I'm not freaking out because I can't pay next month's rent. You can. We pay tax dollars for a reason.
And I really want to follow up with you on that, Tuni, because someone actually asked in the chats, what is the financial strategy for preparing for a transition? And I love the way that you talk about transition. It's just kind of a matter of fact thing to you that you are going to transition. You are going to maybe get laid off or decide to quit. I want to know what you believe is a great strategy financially to transition.
Okay, so I'm not a financial advisor, but one of the things that I would say is if you do see yourself in a situation where you are laid off, like I said, there are resources. Check with your county, right? For example, when I quit my job, one of the first things that I thought about was finances as well. What resources do I have? What resources do I need? And in my specific county, they actually have free financial advisors who work with you. They get money from the government, our tax-paying dollars, right? And I sat down with them and I said, these are my expenses. This is not what's coming in right now. This is what I have saved up. That's at least a tip. I know probably Amatunde and Edie probably have different strategies as well. However, you can still reach out to your county for, I think it's Department of Human Services, for other free resources. So it doesn't feel like, there's a stop in actual income. It shouldn't feel like that. It's just, you just stopped your job, right? That's it. There shouldn't be a stop in income at that point in time. People get laid off, and there's always going to be that backup plan.
Thank you. Amatunde, please, any strategies, anything that's working for you as far as you preparing for your MBA and all of that?
Sure. I want to reiterate again that it's easier to be preventative than to find a cure. I'm not a financial specialist either, and I think finances is one of the hardest things to learn that we don't really talk about. We're not really open about it.
Hush about it. That's true.
I think it's finally getting into the general discourse, but it hasn't always been. Money is something that we associate a lot of shame with. So I think it's important to kind of strip it of all of those things and to talk about it openly in forums like this. I had to learn the hard way. I've been in debt before I got myself out of debt. And so I've sort of spent the last few years preparing a nest egg for a rainy day. And thankfully, I'm able to rely on that now. But in the past, unemployment is great, but it's not very much. It's just a tiny bit. I can't imagine having a family and
live off of that,
taking care of people and having to consider all of those things. But like Tunu said, there are definitely resources, and you should not be afraid to take advantage of resources that your tax dollars are paying for. There are some people who maybe feel like, oh, if I get government health care or government food assistance, that's somehow a smear on you, but absolutely not. You pay your taxes, you take advantage of every single social resource. The job of the government is to take care of its constituents. So definitely, I would say follow up and look into that. But talking to a financial advisor, talking to professionals. There's a lot of free resources out there. Typically, your bank will have some kind of resource. Doing your research. But again, I'm not a finance specialist. I'm barely just trying to figure it out on my own. But with this, I would just say be preventative. Don't find a cure. Don't quit your job without a plan. Getting laid off is out of your control, but don't quit your job without having some kind of contingency. And yeah, I think that is all I would add to that.
Thank you.
I do, I
Edie.
do
Oh,
want to say one
please
last thing.
go ahead.
I don't want to forget this. I think having a plan, a financial plan, is super important because one of the
Mm,
things that is not talked about, especially when you're an immigrant or you come from like a family of immigrants, is they don't talk about money. And when you have
mhm.
a job or a really high corporate career and your finances are not together, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect, a lot of us are not, we're not perfect people, but when you're looking for a job, one of the things that they actually look at is your credit score. You can actually
Yes,
not be hired because of your credit
yes,
score. So if you are
that's
laid
true.
off and you're worrying about finances, I agree with Amatunde as well. Get a financial advisor. And I'll tell you too, it is free. So if you do have bad credit just due to the fact that you had either a gap in employment, just get a financial advisor. It's free and it's going to save you a lot of heartache once you get that job.
I
That's a
will
really, really good point.
I want to follow up with that. And this is going to be a little bit opposite, but it's just something to consider. One thing about this country, it's not a crime to be in debt. There's a lot of shame, there's a lot of stigma attached to it. But if you have mouths to feed and you have responsibilities that are out of your control, don't break your back. Give yourself some grace. It's not a
Mm,
crime in this country to be in debt. Do it
mm,
smartly. Don't go on a luxury trip or like shopping or anything like that. But if you have mouths to feed, I would say there's a lot of resources out there, but sometimes that's not everything, right? If you have mouths
mm,
to feed, things to do. Debt is daunting, but I've been in it. I got myself out of it. You can always come out of it as long as you're responsible. You create a plan for figuring it out. But again, don't be honestly, like credit in this country is a resource that we happen to have. It's not available everywhere, but it is something to lean on. Just do it smartly. Don't do it irresponsibly. Just don't break your back trying to, collect every single penny and figure it out on your own. It gets really, really daunting. It's one of the scary parts of not having a stream of income. Be kind to yourself in that way. And
mm.
they get so much stigma and shame attached to money and debt and all of those things. But money is a skill that is learned. It's not inherent to us. And so it's just important to recognize if you have it or not, and then take it upon yourself to learn and figure out the skill.
Thanks for that tidbit. Yes, I do believe that people actually end up having a having lower self-esteem whenever they do build up debt, which can now hinder you from landing your dream job. So, Edie, can you add anything to this?
Oh, yeah, this is a interesting topic.
Oh, this is gonna be good,
Um,
right?
Listen, a lot of good things, gems have been placed in this room. I would add the resources is a perfect topic to talk about. I think it's something big that people in this room or that are going to watch the replay can take some notes and actually implement those things today. So even when and it depends on where were you laid off, right? What type of company did you get laid off from? How long were you there? It's all these different things. But when you think about laid off, let's just say that you get a severance package. Being able to understand what a lot of people think that, oh, they're just going to give me money and then that's going to, okay, I have this this amount of money to stretch across X. And then while I'm using that to survive, I'm going to keep applying. But a lot of times companies will have other resources. If they don't mention it, ask them. So
Mm,
whether it is a financial, advisor, it could be a career specialist, it could
mm,
be a resume writer, it could be networking. A lot of times they'll give you resources for like up to 12 months, depending on different variables. But I would say, as they stated, start asking more questions to yourself and those around you. One is just good information, but two, you'll be surprised of where you're like, wait a minute. So when you go to unemployment, have questions ready, by the way. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'll get on a call, I'll hang up and be like, I got 10 more questions I forgot to ask, right? So do some thoughtfulness of like writing things down. So the questions may be something that we've talked about from today's conversation. If I, apply for unemployment, I want to know, well, what other resources are out there? They may or may not tell you. You might get someone that's had a bad day. So make sure you're asking those questions. I want to call out that it is overwhelming. Whether you're Googling, asking people, trying to figure out the right people, trying to figure out what platforms to look at, trying to figure out who, when, where to network. Does it cost money? Should I invest here, even though I have this amount of money? It's a lot to handle. So that resting and resetting, giving yourself some grace, and just trying to figure out, okay, let me just brain dump. And is there someone that can help me structure and strategize for this? And then I can come up with an action plan. But life happens. Listen, Omotunde is a hit, a blessing. Everything that she said today is just so inspiring, right? The things she's been through, her education, just all those things. And she's been laid off twice. It could happen. And instead of living in fear, we're going to plan. We're going to live in planning. So I have encouraged people today, whether you're laid off or like me or whatever the case is, decide, regardless of where your income is coming, how much can I consistently put aside and not touch it? It is not an emergency if I need an extra pair of shoes. It is an emergency fund or a fund to sustain you if necessary. That doesn't mean you can just spend all your money and then tap into there. So is it $20? Is it $50 that every week or every 2 weeks or once a month I can do that? And then I want y'all to think about how to get creative in this space. So is it something I do part-time? And then also identify, which this is hard. I mean, it might be dangerous doing this by yourself, but am I in survival mode or am I in strategy mode or am I kind of doing a little bit of both?
Both. That's good.
So what Tino says, relax. I don't think I can relax. I'm not going to do 100. I'm going to be strategic and I'm going to make sure it makes sense so I don't waste my time, right? That's what I tell my clients. But you got to find a happy medium of how can you continue to take care of your health in all aspects while you're applying. Otherwise, you're going to get up in there. You might be unhappy, underpaid, underwhelmed, all those things. And then you're like, well, damn, I did all that and I still don't feel good. So there's a lot to think about. I'm glad that y'all are here or listening to the replay. And I want you to know that you're doing your part of just being in the room to get information and feel hopefully some empathy. And I want you to continue to do things, of course. This is a huge organization with their mission. Make sure that if you're not following them, if you're on all platforms, if you're not asking the right questions, when is their next event? All the things that we're talking about implemented here.
Right. And I want to make sure that I get into telling people how they can follow and how they can get involved. I know there's some questions in the chat, but for the sake of time, we are going to start wrapping up. I have one final question. It's kind of a fun question because I like to end things on a fun note. And I want you all to take some time to think about this especially in this season where you're evolving, a lot of us are evolving. And I want you to think about what your dream role is, okay? Wherever it is, if it's for a company or if it's for yourself. And how would you like to work that job? Would you like it to be remote? Would you like to be in the office? Ladies, think about that. Those who are watching this, I want you to think about this as well and drop it in the chat. I'll give you all a few minutes to think about that while I go over how to stay connected with Resilient Immigrant. Resilient Immigrant, you can find on Instagram, resilient_immigrant. So that's once again at resilient_immigrant. And you can, of course, find Resilient Immigrant through their website, resilientimmigrant.com. And if you feel like you really want to get involved with Resilient Immigrant, Of course, if you need the resources, there are opportunities there. But if you just want to volunteer, maybe you're like me who really wants to get involved with this organization. Maybe you want to host a live stream like this. Please hit the volunteer tab on the website, and someone will be in touch with you soon. So now that you ladies have thought about this, for the sake of time, I want you all to keep your responses at a minute. We'll start with Tinu. Please, what is your dream job and where would you like it to be and how would you like to do this job?
Okay, since you guys started with me, I was hoping that I'd be last, but um, my dream job would be consistently working on me.
Mm,
That would be it. I wouldn't want to go to a 9 to 5. I just want to make impact on people's life. I think that's really important. But yeah, that's really what I would do, and it probably would be um, remotely all over the world. So that's what comes to mind at this point.
I just love how you are unapologetically yourself. All right. And you are true to your values. You know what they are, and you are not shifting away from it. So I thank you for empowering us with just your presence and your being. Amatunde, please let us know.
Sure. Applying for business school, this is something you have to think about, right? You have to know what you want, what your
Yeah.
goals are, able to put it on paper. So I spent a year trying to figure this out. I mentioned earlier that I'm a very purpose-driven person. I believe in the intersection of civic engagement, so that's being active in your community, social impact, that's making your community better, and then driving profits through public-private partnerships. I'm a total capitalist. I love money. I love working with it. I don't necessarily need to have
Say
it,
how
but
it
I
is.
like working with it, moving it, playing with it. I ultimately want to become a CEO. I think that I have a natural knack of bringing people together. I want to run a nice, solid, mid-sized company around 300 to 500 million in revenue. I believe in DEI as a competitive advantage. I don't think it's just something nice to do. I think it is crucial for business. I think
That's good.
the key to innovation is having diverse perspectives in the room. And while I'm in school, I actually want to study and see how DEI can be used as a competitive advantage. There's no thought leadership around it. I think there's generally an appetite that everybody wants to do it. That's great and fine, but there hasn't been any thought leadership, not much research in how to actually implement it successfully as a business. In order for a company to spend money, a function either has to be making them money or saving them money.
Mm.
And so I want to spend my time exploring that. And as a CEO, I would want to put that into practice.
So I hope that you have written that all over your resumes because that was just perfect cover letter right there. Edie, please let us know what's your dream job and how would you like to do it?
I thought about it a little bit, but I was falling in love with these ladies and
Yes,
literally
we have such a
envisioning
good
it.
panel.
But and on today we're gonna have to talk because I've worked in diversity space, program management, running it, my business, and everything that you said. My gosh, we could talk about it for hours.
Mm.
And any way that I can support you in learning or whatever that is, sharing ideas, will love to do that. For me, I want to continue to scale my business. So from a consulting standpoint, I love working with individuals one-on-one, but ultimately what I envision, what I know what will happen as I continue to invest in myself and my business is to be all over the world. I prefer in person. Like a lot of people are like, what? Yeah, I'm actually that person that's like, I want to touch you. I want to give hugs,
Mm.
to all the attendees that come in the room. I really want to understand. I want you all to be vulnerable, all those things. But I want to teach around the concept of unpacking ourselves from a personal and professional standpoint. A lot of times we don't talk about kind of like the how they interrelate and connecting the dots for two so that you can be as whole as you're figuring out yourself what you want to do and connecting that in your career as a second priority, which people tend to flip flop it because of society and all those things. But I will be in all of your rooms, companies, state, country, what have you, to continue to empower and inspire specifically Black women, but the workforce as a whole. So Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having me.
ladies. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful responses. I do want to keep to time and respect everyone's time. But before we do, can you all just go through and tell people where to find you on socials? Tinu, we'll start with you.
Alrighty, so thank you so much for having me here. You can actually connect with me on Luxury Career Club, and then I'm also on LinkedIn as Tinu A as well. So it was a pleasure being here, and I hope that if you are here and you were blessed by everything that these wonderful ladies have said, please feel free to share it to someone who needs it.
That's good. Pass it on. Omotunde, how can people find you?
My name's Omotunde Oguntoyinbo on LinkedIn. There's actually two of me, one from like back when I was in college, but the correct one says go-to-market strategist. Can't miss me. But please,
That's
if anyone has any follow-up questions, happy to connect and answer
Send
questions.
her a message on LinkedIn. Edie, how can people find you?
Same thing. You can reach out to me if any follow-up questions, conversations. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn at Her Career Cafe, spelled just as it sounds. And then also on LinkedIn as Edie Hayes. So I will talk to you all soon. I'm not going to say goodbye, but
All right.
We'll talk soon.
All righty. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, ladies. And whoever you are, wherever you are watching this, we are sending you such light and positive energy. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.